Well, that was one nice introduction. Thank you, and good morning. Good morning to everyone. You've been hearing about big data and 5G and faster speeds and artificial intelligence. I'm going to take you totally opposite way. I'm going to talk about 0G. I'm going to talk about really small messages, how these really small messages actually make a huge impact, huge difference in the IoT world, where more is more seems to be kind of big trend. So we go to the opposite way. Couple of words about us. Connected Finland. We are IoT operator in Finland and Estonia. We work with Sigfox technology, so we are a Sigfox operator. We also develop, manufacture IoT devices, so we know a bit about hardware also, and software. We have our own software product. So one could say that we live IoT, we breathe IoT, and we sleep IoT. Everything we do is related to IoT. So we are full stack IoT house. We don't do anything else than IoT. There's this old phrase stating that everything that can be connected will be connected. We've added our 2 cents there. It's the cost, actually, that prevents many things to be connected. Everything doesn't become connected kind of automatically. The cost is really big driver. And it's just not one thing which is affecting on the cost. Of course, it's a multiple, it's a cocktail of different things affecting connectivity cost. Is obviously one thing, but it's just the kind of friction of the total IoT deployment cost. Hardware cost, I mean, add one microcontroller, you double your sensor price. So one needs really pay attention how to kind of boil your IoT deployment. When we look at the connectivity evolution, 5G is coming, yes, we've been hearing. It's kind of, when we look at the mobile connectivity technologies, NMT, GSM, 3G, 4G, now 5G is coming. And for those of you who always want to wait something better, don't worry, 6G is already in pipeline, so it's coming. So there's always something better coming. It kind of flows 5 years hype, 5 years deployment, and then same time when the deployment starts, the next hype begins. It's relatively straightforward, but with IoT, it's not like that at all. It's really a big mess of different technologies. It doesn't make your life as a customers or IoT deployers easy, to be honest. And when I took a look at these different technologies when I put this presentation together and came up with this kind of interesting finding that the 0G space is actually getting really crowded. It's not the kind of fast space, 5G fiber, it's the 0G, it's the small messaging, it's the simple side which is becoming crowded. So for me, when I reflect this to smart buildings, I have to say that in my opinion, in our opinion, smart buildings IoT doesn't really need 5G because it creates more challenges, it creates more problems than it actually solves. Now jumping to smart buildings, what are those cases? What is the data? What is the typical use cases? These are really live stuff. This is happening right now. Tens of thousands of sensors, these kind of sensors, which measure pressure differences. For example, smoke detectors, connected smoke detectors, temperature, humidity, movement, location, these type of sensors. They actually consume really tiny amounts of data. We're talking about a couple bytes, maybe even 1 byte data amounts. 2 bytes. With 6 bytes, you can actually do miracles. With 8 bytes, you can actually parameter your device. You cannot, obviously, update your device's softwares with these kind of small messages, but you can do amazing things, actually. And you can solve really, really big issues. I have 3 use cases I'm going to represent to you where we utilize these small messages today, not tomorrow. These are all mass volume cases which are very live at the moment in Finland and globally. But before doing that, just kind of reflect of 2 types of approaches. We have this traditional IT approach where we use 2-way open internet connection, IP protocol. You have to update your softwares, device softwares of your devices all the time, actually. Because if you don't update it, someone might capture your devices and softwares. In a way, you are in a loop of constant maintenance with your devices, and you compromise your power consumption, which shortens your device's lifetime, and then somebody has to go there. With zero-G, minimalistic and cost-driven solution, you actually minimize your data transfer, go down to 1 byte, 2 bytes, 3 bytes, 4 bytes. There's no software updates in this world. But don't take me wrong, you can still update your devices by parametering those. So that's a kind of constant misunderstanding that you somehow have to update your device's software because you have to. Well, you don't, in our opinion. Then there's no maintenance during lifetime, and then you optimize your battery lifetime. We talk about 5 to 10 years battery lifetimes, independent, so no one has to go to your sensors. That's really crucial. One more thing I'd like to highlight, even though we are not hugging trees here, we are IT people, hardcore IT people, but we have to also think about sustainability. I mean seriously, guys. Data centers are already consuming 3 to 5% of global energy, and that figure is doubling every 4 years. I mean, it means that, 15, 20 years, IT people are responsible for 50% of global energy consumption. Data really is the new oil, has a new meaning, in my opinion. And in IoT, it's important because we store the data. We don't watch videos, which just disappear. We store the data for years. We multiply the data, the different services. We multiply the data to different platforms. So anything we collect multiplies. And of course, it's also creating costs. Now, what are the use cases for small data? There are actually surprisingly many use cases which can be solved by using just a couple bytes. In smart building environment, motion, water metering, movement, location, temperature, humidity, sound, vibration, all of these. And these are very existing use cases. These are very existing. We have sensors for all these cases. So it actually solves quite a lot of challenges, and a couple of bytes makes really difference. Now jumping to use cases, what are the smart buildings, smart offices, smart living cases I'd like to highlight to you guys, which are solved by a couple of bytes. Temperature, collecting temperature. 3 years ago, when we started this business, it was kind of impossible for us to imagine that this kind of really simple data would make such a big difference in building energy consumption, energy consultancy businesses. By knowing exact temperature data from the apartments, our partners can provide 15 to 20% cost savings today in energy cost. And of course, it means energy consumption. And well, we are here in Finland. When I came here, I was kind of having deja vu from a slush event last November. It's snowing, amazing. Anyway, there's heating happening at this very moment, and heating counts 30% of energy costs in Finland. And by these really simple temperature sensors, which are deployed by tens of thousands of devices at this very moment, we can enable our partners to provide solutions which save energy, save cost. So it's, and imagine 2 bytes, just 2 bytes. We have office occupation use case. This is really interesting. It's growing globally everywhere. By installing small motion detectors, PIR, passive infrared sensors powered by some of these low power, wide area network technologies, Sigfox, LoRa, maybe NB-IoT someday. By sending 2 bytes, I detect movement, I don't detect movement. They actually open up really huge use case of smart offices where we can enable, again, our partners. We don't provide these software solutions. It's our partners who are actually solving the real problem there. But by using this 2 byte data, they can provide floor plans, informative floor plans. They can provide systems which enable employers do space bookings, find available spaces. I come to work, I see this big screen. I mean, in big office environment, it actually matters. So that's one thing. And the other thing is data analytics in office environment. So it's a big trend to collect occupational data in office environment to get to know kind of office desk occupation ratios and meeting room bookings and so on. And I have actually one example screen how the data looks when this 2 byte movement data is fully utilized, powered by artificial intelligence, powered by hardcore IoT tailor-made platform for this use case, desk occupation, anonymized, so these sensors don't know, they are not video cameras, they don't know who you are, they detect movement. It's a very simple thing. But by detecting movement, these guys actually can collect average utilization ratios. This is a pretty nice 54% utilization. That's really good. In office, typically it's 15 to 25%. And then one can start thinking that maybe we should actually have more meeting rooms and less office desks. And this is done by 2 bytes. This is interesting area. I picked this pressure difference because it's such a big issue, especially in Finland. Most of the crowd is in Finland or from Northern Europe, where the environment is pretty hostile. So there's actually a figure of 2/3 of our schools, kindergartens, maybe hospitals are somehow affected by poor indoor air quality, even mold. So it's a huge problem actually, and our kids go to schools. Half of the schools are suffering of this problem, and most of these air quality issues are actually caused by either poor ventilation. 82% of these problems are caused by poor ventilation, and 62% by ventilation malfunction. And I'm not saying that all of these problems could be solved and avoided by measuring building pressure differences. But by measuring building pressure differences, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 20% of the cost of these issues could be avoided. And by solving 10-20% of these, I mean, it's 150, 300 million euros by measuring pressure differences. This is officially stated by really experts in the indoor air quality area that we should start measuring pressure differences in public buildings, schools, kindergartens, to avoid this. I think it's a kind of under pressure issue. If it becomes too big and constant, one starts to create big problems in these buildings. Right now, the current solution is well, you see and we see all these, many of our kids, my kids went these type of schools and well, they were happy, but I wasn't too happy. There's the other solution, start measuring pressure differences, start delivering those 2-byte messages, and maybe we could save big money. Wrap up about IoT deployment. Less really is more, especially in IoT. I mean, less power consumption, cheaper lifetime costs, 2 years lifetime versus 5 years versus 10 years. It's really, of course, if you're playing with unlimited budgets, go for it. But for most of us, less is really more, and you need to pay attention on your cost. I really question, do you really need to update your IoT devices software? Just because you have to and you can. Because software updates, it's a loop. If you can avoid it. Because at the end of the day, if you have a temperature meter sensor, it measures temperature. You cannot update the sensor to measure CO2 or volatile organic compounds. You have to have those sensors in the hardware. So think. IoT tools to make buildings' life smarter, they do exist. There's plenty of stuff available. We are deploying. Our partners, our competitors are deploying at this very moment thousands, tens of thousands of sensors which exist. So there's really no need to wait for anything better, anything faster, unless you really want and like. Focus on the essential needs. I mean, key needs. If you need temperature, then focus on temperature. If you need CO2, if you need movement, don't kind of over-spec your IoT deployment. Otherwise, you increase costs again. And each byte really counts. You have to transmit each byte. Each byte consumes energy. It consumes power. It consumes storage. And it's a kind of source for costs. So each byte really counts, and less is more. Thank you.